RetroDaze.
Childhood was exciting. Every day brought something new and special into our worlds, so that even the small things, like a new sitcom airing on television or a Kool-Aid Wacky Warehouse flyer coming in the mail, felt momentous. Still though, there were always those long days of pure nothing when boredom struck and stripped away all joy.
When those moments hit, we required a medication more potent than any of our usual curatives. Something that bundled a multitude of our favorite things, like food, music, games, and exploration, all into a single restorative activity. What are you waiting for? Pack your bags and get ready for adventure, because we're going on a road trip. The road trip is largely a mid to late 20th century creation, since preferably one requires a car and network of highways and roads. Of course, if we want to stretch the phrase beyond our modern conception, we'd find humans have been taking road trips for longer than there have been roads. In these cases, the travelers are better identified as adventurers, out searching the undiscovered territory of the world in harsh and often deadly conditions. Not exactly what we think of as a road trip. I mean, we've all played the Oregon Trail. We know how that journey ends, and it ain't at the gift shop. According to Colin Marshall in his article, A Brief History of the Great American Road Trip, the idea of the road trip itself goes back to 1880s Germany, when Bertha Benz took her husband's then experimental car on a then illegal 66-mile drive through the countryside. He goes on to explain the first American road trip was taken in 1903 by a doctor named Horatio Jackson. It involved a bet, a dog, and no signage at all. The road trips we took as kids were mercifully much more fun and a lot less dangerous, with nary a case of fatal dysentery to sour the mood. Whatever our destination was, be it a campsite, a hotel, resort, family home, or something else, gathering all the correct snacks and road games was essential. There were the boring suitcases or duffel bags filled with everyday items like clothing and toiletries, sure, but I'll bet you also had a backpack that you made sure to keep with you in the back seat of the car, because that's where you'd stash all the good stuff. When the alarm goes off at 5 a.m. the next morning, parents always wanted to beat the traffic, you'd start to think the trip isn't worth the agony of rolling out of bed. Then the smell of bacon, toast, and eggs reach your nose, your eyes snap open, and even though it's still dark outside, you know it's going to be a great day. Bellies full of breakfast and a trunk filled with bags, your family sets off just as the sun is cresting the far horizon. The smell of coffee fills the small space as your mom pours a cup from the thermos. You're far too young for coffee, but the aroma is so satisfying, you have an idea you'll grow to love it when you're older. Away we go, your dad says, putting the car into drive. Your stomach lurches with excitement and you gaze out the passenger window, silently saying goodbye to your house. Then your street, then the neighborhood, until finally you reach the highway and the real traveling begins. This is also when the boredom begins. You check your digital Pac-Man watch. Only 10 minutes have passed. As if reading your mind, your mom pops in the mixtape she made for road trips. All the favorites are on there, and for the next dozen miles, you all sing along to Holiday Road by Lindsey Buckingham, Runnin' Down a Dream by Tom Petty, and Should I Stay or Should I Go by The Clash. Just as your voice is giving out, your dad switches back to the radio saying, "Gotta check the traffic report." Well, that's totally fine with you because you've prepared for such eventualities. You grab your backpack, covered in iron-on patches from Nintendo Power, the Transformers, and cities from previous trips. This is your travel backpack, after all, and unzip the back pocket. You dig around until you find your Walkman and the Transformers movie soundtrack. Hitting play, you zone out to the tunes as the soft hum of the road starts to ease you to sleep. If you have a sibling, this is the exact time they'll punch you in the shoulder and exclaim, "Punch Buggy Blue, no punchbacks!" What a little brat. All right, let the road games begin. Yeah, you're awake now, scanning the highway with an intensity usually reserved for a round of Punch-Out, only this time, instead of Glass Joe, you'll be swinging at "Cut it out, you two." Your father's voice is stern and commanding. "I'll turn this car around if..." You both start laughing hysterically. You weren't falling for that old chestnut. Okay, your mom says, no more punch buggy. How about the license plate game instead? Ugh, probably the most boring road trip game ever, and you're pretty sure invented by adults to keep kids busy for the entirety of the trip with no hope of ever actually winning. The rules were simple. Spot a license plate from every state. Every state. I mean, come on now. The more advanced version required keeping score, since obviously no one would ever get all 50. In answer to your mom's suggestion, you blow a raspberry. She suggests road trip scavenger hunt, which, in your estimation, is only marginally better, but kind of fun to use the little handwritten checklist your parents make. The best of these spot this style games was road trip bingo, sometimes called auto bingo. For one thing, you got to use those cool store-bought bingo cards and slide back the panel to reveal items as you find them. For another, it had an added layer of difficulty since you didn't just have to find a certain number of things, but actually line them up horizontally or vertically. Still, one of your favorites was I Spy, because you'd eventually slip in, I spy with my little eye something smelly, and proceed to laugh your head off because obviously you met your dumb, stink-faced sibling who was farting up the whole car. Once these games were exhausted, you had miniature travel games with their little magnetic pieces or push-in pegs. Taking turns, you played the twin-pack chess and checkers, backgammon, and your favorite, Space Venture. Even though pieces would inevitably come loose and get lost in the car, you always seemed to find them and the games would continue until your sibling started to cheat. Then it was time for another trip to your legendary backpack. If you can't stay home and play Nintendo, then the next best thing was the Gameboy.
You can take it to the lake. You can take it on a date. You can take it to a boring picture show. Ha! You can take it to the game. Ow! You can take it on a plane. You can take it anywhere you want to go.
Go with the power of the NES, right in the palm of your hand. Game Boy.
First released in North America in August 1989. If you were one of the lucky 1 million buyers in those first few weeks of sales, you could have very well had a system for your trip along with one or more of the launch titles: Tetris, Super Mario Land, Alleyway, Tennis, and Baseball. Anytime before August 1989, and you might have filled your backpack with one of Tiger's pervasive handheld games. Tiger Electronics was founded by Gerald, Randy, and Arnold Rissman in 1978, and by the mid-80s were putting out a number of these LCD handhelds which would run through the 90s. Everyone seemed to have at least a few of these, often Batman, Simon's Quest, Double Dragon, and Gauntlet, though of course there were many more to choose from. Before long, the empty thermos of coffee translates into full bladders, and your dad veers off the road for some relief. The last stop was one of those boring highway rest stops that had nothing but bathrooms and a couple of old vending machines. You made the best of it, begging a couple quarters off your parents for a bag of Dipsy Doodles and a pack of Lifesavers. This stop is one of the big welcome centers. This was the closest thing to a mall you'd get to explore during your trip, with a gift shop, food court, and all the requisite travel-centric information. While your parents stop at the information desk to ask about directions, get maps, and inquire about local attractions, you race off to the far ends of the pristine building to take in the wonderful smells of frying food and gawk at the hats and t-shirts emblazoned with the city or state imagery. Your parents discover a few notable roadside attractions, some of which even make the itinerary. These tourist magnets often come along with dubious claims of world's largest, the country's best, and the continent's first. For some reason, oversized items are always a big draw. Giant baseball bats, the world's largest covered wagon, the world's largest ball of paint, the world's largest bull, and Paul Bunyan's as far as the eye can see. Honestly, you aren't so sure about all that, but you do love a good gift shop, and this time you buy a quartz crystal, a pack of the ever-popular astronaut ice cream, and a mini license plate with your name on it. Further along the highway, you stop at a 7-Eleven since your dad had to fuel up. Here, you buy an extra-large Slurpee, ensuring yet another pit stop in a matter of mere miles. 7-Eleven is a haven of junk food choices too, from Slim Jims to Twinkies. Some even had arcades, hot food stations, and movie rental sections. Though this one doesn't, and you figure it's better that way. Otherwise, you might end up spending too much time on Defender or Joust when you should be continuing the grand adventure. If you don't get some hot food from the 7-Eleven or one of the other scattered fast food joints along Vacation Road, it's probably because you have frugal parents that like to pack food from home. You stare longingly at road signs for McDonald's, Burger King, Rax, Burger Chef, and Taco Bell. Only when your mom says, "Who's hungry?" your dad doesn't stop at any of the wonderful fast food offerings. He pulls over onto the side of the road and opens the trunk, where he stashed a cooler filled with cold-cut sandwiches and cans of pop. Getting back in the car, he says, "We've got ham and Swiss, turkey on rye, or roast beef." He tosses a 25-cent bag of chips onto your lap and hands over a frigid can of 7-Up along with the sandwich of your choice. Then he pulls right back onto the road as he devours the sandwich one-handed with a big goofy smile on his face, probably feeling like a real king of the road. As you unwrap your own sandwich and stare out at the road blurring by, thinking about all the wonderful places you've visited, you knew, deep in your child's heart, he truly was.
Those childhood road trips of long ago, captained by our parents, were often our first glimpses of the country. We'd discover so many new things, all introduced to us over the course of a whirlwind adventure, that it'd take another week to fully digest it all. These trips proved Ralph Waldo Emerson correct. It's not the destination, it's the journey. What journeys did you set out on as kids? What were your favorite parts of these epic road trips? I'd love to hear about it down in the comments, and if you enjoy our content, please consider liking this video, subscribing to the channel, and maybe even activating that ubiquitous notification bell. It really does make a huge difference. Let's meet again next week to celebrate yesteryear, right here on RetroDaze.
Clicky clicky.